One-way versus two-way video interviews. Now, first of all, I will say we must bear in mind that video interviews as a concept are now the default, in that far more people are doing video interviews than are doing face-to-face interviews. That we are now in a situation where the video interview format is now the main one, the default, the primary. Okay, and as a result, we do need to pay very specific, careful attention to this format of assessment, as it is relatively new compared to the concept of face-to-face interview. And only now has it become the main way which people interview. We can break them into two main camps: synchronous, also known as two-way interviews, which is the sort of standard, and then we have asynchronous or one-way interviews, which are effectively recordings. You upload a recording of you asking the question, and then the candidate uploads a recording of them answering it. It's asynchronous because they're done at completely different times. There are pros and cons from the research that we do have in this area, particularly when it comes to issues surrounding media richness and particularly the ability to probe and to really engage with the candidate. Two-way interviews do seem to be better. You can ask people to clarify. You can go deeper. You can use probing questions and to come at things from different angles. Whereas the one-way video interview, it is a little limited in that regard, in that you're just getting a recording. You can't follow up, you can't explore, you get your recording, and so that's sort of it. So that's the big advantage of two-way interviews, aside from, of course, perhaps people being more familiar and more comfortable with that format. But there are definitely advantages of an asynchronous or a one-way interview, not in and of itself, merely because of the way they're administered. One big advantage, of course, is that it is significantly more convenient, potentially for the employer and for the candidate, in that you can upload responses at any time. You don't have to agree on a time and specific setting where you would do this. You don't say, okay, we're going to sit down and talk at 3 p.m. on the 5th. You can do it presumably, usually within a certain range. You'll get an invitation and say, please respond to this within the next week. So you can choose the time and the location. You have much more control. It's a lot more friendly to the candidate in that regard. And likewise, the employer can review the questions at any time as well. You don't have to do it all synced up. It's asynchronous. So that's much more convenient. That's an advantage for sure. I don't think that necessarily improves the predictability, but it makes it much more scalable. As well as that, it's a lot faster because you're only looking at responses. And so what would normally be an hour could be 15 minutes. It could be less, it could be 10 minutes of actual interview time. And then you can go through that sort of at your leisure. So again, another advantage. The big advantage in my mind is that it's much easier. In fact, you were kind of forced to structure the interview using an asynchronous one-way interview. It is structured by design in that every candidate gets exactly the same questions, presented in exactly the same way. It keeps the variables the same, which makes things a lot more reliable, which makes things more valid. Whereas with a two-way interview, yes, you can structure it, and you should structure it. You should give everyone the same questions all of the time. The evidence is overwhelmingly clear that that's better, but it is harder to do. You will ask questions a little bit differently. And some people, of course, are just doing literally unstructured conversational interviews still, completely ignoring all the research in this area. You cannot do that with a one-way interview. It is always structured. So that's one big advantage, is it is much easier, and in many ways you are forced to structure it. Additionally, the response format is very favorable too. It's very structured in that you rate each response. You can give a 1 to 5, 1 to 10 rating on how well they've done. And so you're recording that data over time, which allows you to do further analyses. You can have a look at the questions. You can run things like Cronbach's alpha. You can use traditional psychometric assessment methods to evaluate the quality of your questions, which you can then improve over time, because you can see if a certain question isn't working. You can review it, place it, and then collect data on it. It allows you to improve the reliability and therefore the validity of your assessment would, in a way you would do with a psychometric assessment, but this case you can do it with interviews, which you really can't do unless you're very careful and very diligent and say record the two-way interview. It's hard to replicate that, but it's very easy to replicate with a one-way interview. So overall, I'm of the opinion they both have their advantages. On the pure face of it, two-way interviews, they have the advantage in that the data you get is of higher quality. But what you can do with the data with a one-way interview is much broader. It's much easier to structure, it's much easier to analyze, and it allows you to record it, mostly because of the virtue that it's done through a specialist platform. So you carefully think about what you would like to do and when. I generally recommend asynchronous videos earlier on in the recruitment process, alongside psychometrics or immediate following. And then two-way video interviews, maybe an intermediate stage. Maybe that would determine either who makes it to a face-to-face interview or in lieu of a face-to-face interview at the end of the process if it's a fully remote role. I think that's the best way to split it up, but they both have their advantages.